And welcome everybody to Homeschool Connect Expo. We are live right in the middle of our curriculum fair that was running from March 15th to April 15th. And that's the place where you'll find about 68, 70 homeschool curriculum providers. And so during this time period, we get together with a few each day and get to know them a little bit more and what they do and about their curriculum and everything. So if you go to Homeschool Connect Expo, .com and check out, we still have all of our 300 other exhibitors, but during this time period, we're highlighting the curriculum fair. So share and get out there and check out what we have for you. But right now, I have Rita and Claire from Rooted in Language. I'm going to bring on here in a little bit, and I've been looking forward to this because I had one of my learners, one of my kids that we homeschooled. He had difficulties and differences and learning struggles, and we didn't really know it, and we didn't catch it. At first, I'm just going to say it, we thought he was being lazy or being off and didn't want to, and he was their baby. But then saw more and more, and it was really difficult, to really figure out exactly. So this is near and dear to my heart because it affected our family and one of our kids. So let's bring them on and get to know them a little bit more. And so we can see what Rooted in Language is all about and what their curriculum is. So, Claire and Rita, how are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Thanks for giving some time so we can get to know you and more about Rooted in Language. And you've been with Homeschool Connect Expo all these years, and I love that you've been a part of us, but we have a ton of brand new homeschool families and parents and people that might not know about you guys. So why don't you start off introducing yourself and tell us a little bit more about Rooted in Language?
Okay. Well, I am Rita Scavasco. I'm a speech language pathologist, and I started Rooted in Language. I think we're going on 5 years now, but I have been in the field working with kids who struggle with reading and writing for, I think I was figuring out maybe 38 years coming up. So I have spent a long time and have decades of experience working with kids in language arts and kids who struggle, and it's in the areas of reading, writing, and spelling. I also homeschooled my own children, and most of the clients I see privately are homeschool kids. And I just really wanted to take what we do when we work with kids and really bring that to parents, because I could really see how much progress kids make is because of the home education they were getting. So we started Rooted in Language to provide you with some materials and training and classes. And it's not just me. We have a team of 4 dynamic people, and one of them is Claire Molitor. So that's who is up next.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'm Claire Molitors. I am sort of technically trained, and my degree is in creative writing, actually, and lots of additional training in working with children who have reading and writing struggles like dyslexia and dysgraphia. And, like Rita said, as a company, as a sort of entity that is rooted in language, it is our goal to provide things for families, for parents, for educators, kind of in situations like Sam, you were saying that you're in, or we're in, that you really don't know oftentimes when there might be a struggle, or you get the sense that maybe, there is something that's wrong or off, or there's difficulty somewhere, but you don't know how to address it necessarily. Or even have language around, how to talk about some of that stuff. And that's a big part of what we do, is this idea of empowering educators and providing insight into how the reading and writing brain works, right? How literacy works, how the language system works, and how, you as an educator, as a parent, as a teacher, as whatever you're doing to support, your children, how you can, continue to help them grow and reach independence and reach, literacy and everything that goes along with that kind of rich experience that we can get through reading and writing.
Awesome.
Right. Claire mentioned that literacy, reading and writing, is rooted in the language system, and that's why we have that name. That I think a lot of times we have a lot of confusion around that, right? That we feel like, well, my child is really great when they're listening to stories, but they can't comprehend when they're reading themselves. So what does that tell me? And I think we have a hard time realizing that what we know about reading and writing is it's really built on top of this listening and speaking system. And we know that it's really important that we teach all of these skills together. And sometimes when one of them is getting stuck, and we can have struggles in reading for a lot of reasons. It could be dyslexia. It could be dysgraphia, the writing aspect is really struggling. It can be underlying language skills. But a lot of times the kids we see are smart and bright. And I think, Sam, that's what makes us wonder, are they just being lazy, right? Because we think, well, you can do this, your attention's great when you're doing this one thing. Why is it so hard over here in this other arena? And that's really what we want to help you understand.
Yeah, and I didn't even know about dysgraphia. I knew dyslexia, but really the only thing I knew about, sadly, was like the 80s and 90s sitcoms when one friend or whatever had it, and then they talked about it, and it's about reversing the letters, and that's such a small part of it, and so I had no clue. And I was watching your videos, and I stopped and I showed my wife I'm like, look at the writing on the dysgraphia. You had some pictures of some writing, 3 of them, and she's like, wow, that's our son's writing. I mean, that's and I had no clue. So even now, and he just turned 19. Even now we're still learning. I mean, through you guys of just some of the things that we need, because he was bright everywhere else, and he had everything, and it was the baby, and we had no clue.
Right. And it's never too late. It's really interesting. I am showing my age here, but I opened an AARP magazine, and it said, people used to think you never learned anything past the age of 50, but now we know better, and I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, I can remember a time where you felt like, by the time high school came, if kids weren't really reading and writing, I mean, I've been doing this a lot of decades. People would think, well, that's it. The window is closed. And the window is never closed. That's one thing we want you to know. But the other thing is that, a lot of this research has changed over the years. You're right that we didn't really understand dyslexia and dysgraphia. We did understand oral language and comprehension weaknesses. We did have understanding of that, but even that has grown. Mm-hmm. And some of you might have heard the saying, we did not coin it, when we know better, we do better, right? And we know more now, but it's hard to sort through all this information out there, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's the tough part. And so that's what we feel we bring to the table, I follow the research. I've been doing this. It's multiple fields. The field of speech and language, as Claire talked about, training and reading research that's going on, the brain studies that are going on. So much is there, right? But it's hard to bring that all together. And it's also hard to know, but then what do I do at the table tomorrow, right? And that's part of what we want to talk to you about is, what do you bring to the table tomorrow for reading or writing or spelling, right? And when I'm at that table, what do I do at that table, right? Yeah. What do I read in front of me, and what do I do? What does my child need to do, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Let's. You want to share the screen, and that way do the presentation. And for everybody else out there, that's watching live, if you're watching live, jump on. You can do the comments on Facebook group, the Facebook page, or YouTube, and they'll come in, and then I'll ask the questions, here at the end. So anybody just jump in if you have any questions, and let me jump and bring this on. There we go.
While Claire is bringing that up, I just wanted to clarify that we have educator training classes as well as instructional materials and some specific reading and writing programs. Okay.
Yes. A little bit of a mixed bag of things, right? All kinds of stuff.
Well, language arts is complex, as we say, right, Claire?
It is. It's very complicated, which means the answer is often complicated, and the underlying, difficulties are complicated as well. And it's kind of an ongoing theme of everything that we talk about and everything that we teach. Is, we want there to be sometimes simple solutions for things, and you want that kind of like magic pill, and then it all becomes better. And when you're dealing with stuff that you're still trying to sift through and find what the underlying, where the underlying difficulty is, or what an issue or weakness might be, it's kind of a roll up your sleeves and dig into it kind of situation. And to help with that, or to help kind of open that conversation, we wanted to start with this sort of question of if any of these things sound familiar. These are the kinds of things that we often hear from parents and from families and even from students themselves, right? Having some of these difficulties. So within sort of the scope of reading, and I will say at the beginning here that all of these things intertwine together, they weave together, as Rita was saying about the whole kind of language system. It all wraps around itself. But to kind of divide it out a little bit, if we're talking about reading in general, some of the things we might encounter that might be difficulties is a lot of guessing. When you're reading, especially if your child is reading out loud, they might come across a word and see the first letter and guess at the rest of the letter, or even see maybe the size of the word and guess at it, or start to sound out or sound through the word and sort of what looks like kind of give up partway through the word and kind of just guess at the rest of it. They might experience, Rita had said this, poor comprehension. We've talked about, or we've understood maybe listening comprehension weakness for a while. And you might also have this in reading comprehension, that your student can read well, or it looks like they're reading really well. And then they get done and you ask them what it was about and they have no idea, right? Or they can't tell you fully, or they're missing big components of what they've read, like big informational pieces or big details. And then the last one is that there might just be low stamina, right? To sit down with a book is just so much work, right? And it's just too much effort, or trying to get through a whole page or a whole paragraph or even a whole sentence. And it's, a lot of exhaustion and a lot of difficulty around that.
Right. And we also have issues around writing. Some of these might sound familiar to you. So one is just kids who dislike writing or seem to avoid writing. They are frustrated by the discrepancy between what they can say and dictate to you versus what they can get on paper. So they have a lot of frustration there. You might just get low output, fast exhaustion. And, I think we were already talking about this. We see kids who just look like they just don't have the stick-to-itiveness that we want them to have. And we don't understand why, but this is like a huge wall for some kids to climb. It's very hard. They get exhausted quickly. It's paddling upstream for them, right? And so you see that. And then as we were also just mentioning, we do have a video on dysgraphia, but some children really struggle with handwriting. And we have a video that kind of shows you a little more about that. But that might be something you can just see, that they have a death grip on their pencils. This is really difficult for them. Do any of these sound familiar to you?
And the last kind of area that we're going to be talking about today is spelling. And obviously, as I said before, these all intertwine together, right? We know that spelling impacts writing and impacts reading as well. But to kind of pull it out a little more specifically, there might just be this kind of general spelling struggle, right? That when you go to put pen to paper, or type out a word, depending on where you are in skill level or age level, that there's just this hang up here, right? And not being able to connect the sounds and how they then translate into letters. There might be no editing going on. So even if they know they've misspelled something, or they might not know that they've misspelled something, that looking back over what you've written or typed is just not happening. And then the last one is this kind of poor memory piece, right? Not being able to hold on to the knowledge, right? I taught them the spelling pattern, or I taught them this rule, and they seem to understand it, for the time that we did it. And then the next day it's not there anymore.
Right. So we're going to just unpack this a little bit and show you where you can get started to really turn some of these issues around with your kids. And I just want to reiterate that we work with kids across all ages and stages, and we try to provide something for you in working with your own child at any age and stage. Okay, and so what we're going to show you will kind of be addressing in these different levels as well. So first of all, don't be discouraged. Reading is complex, but we do understand it. We know a lot about it. We personally know a lot about it. It is amazing what's happened in reading research over the years, because we literally know what areas of the brain are being recruited when we teach reading. And the one thing we do know is that while it looks like it happens magically for a few kids, that's a very small percentage. And it's really that kids learn how to read. I said it's based on the oral language system, but it's not like the oral language system. All we have to do is love our kids and talk to them a little bit, and they start talking, hopefully. But reading is not that way. So we really understand, how do you work on it? So what do we do? So first of all, if you have this situation where you have kids who are kind of reading off the page, right? They started reading and they started changing some of the words. They're maybe following content, but it's really not what's on the page. One of the things we show you is how to teach these effective, explicit strategies. How to read, very explicit and effective, right? So with comprehension,
sorry,
that's okay. We really work on teaching kids how to engage with text. A novel is a big thing. Where do we start? If your child only will read, graphic kinds of novels, and you really want them to be reading chapters, how do we get to that? And we really work on helping kids engage with text. So first they have to have good skills, which is through these effective, explicit strategies. And at the same time, though, we start on comprehension, because real reading always has to involve comprehension. And a lot of this actually starts to build into their reading muscles. We build up their reading muscles. And kids it's not just that they tolerate more, they start having more success. And success leads to more learning, and success gets them moving down that path where they're becoming stronger readers and writers. And they can endure more and grow. Sometimes you'll feel like your kids are stuck. Oh man, they got so far and then we got stuck. And our goal is to get them unstuck and back on that path of growth in reading.
Absolutely. So what does that mean that you could do tomorrow, right? What could you do now? That kind of question of, I want to go home and I want this to happen, right? So in terms of, kind of what we offer, what we try and do, a big portion of what we do are our educator training courses, because one of the big pieces that kind of makes us who we are as a company is this idea of empowering the educator, of giving you the tools and strategies and knowledge and insight in order to start affecting real change, right, in your students. And so, oftentimes at this level, one of the big places we tell people to start is with our phonics and spelling class. And it's a deep dive into the skill building, these reading muscles, right, as that term is, these kind of individual underlying, sometimes foundational, especially if you have more of that early age, teaching reading and writing, but also still foundational even at older ages, right, at middle school or high school levels, really filling in so that they have a very solid path to walk on, right? It's a lot of metaphors together there, but, and just to show that, these are students of all ages, like Rita said, that we're working with here. And we like the manipulatives. We have a picture of one of our materials there called sound bugs. That's a big connecting the sounds we hear to the letters we write and doing that in a colorful and manipulative way. It's multisensory. But the student is still, holding the pen. I'm sitting here holding a pen myself. I can't even avoid it. The student has the pencil, has the marker. They're engaging in this work, not being done for them, but that they are the ones starting to build up these skills, right, themselves. And then often another, a big piece that we sell, a big material that we sell, that's what I'm trying to say. It's called Annotating Literary Elements, and it's a big comprehension piece, right? That moving through text, connecting and engaging with text, and how you do that over both something very lengthy like a novel, but also, even short stories and things that are smaller, more bite-sized kind of pieces of reading, but still really digging into it, understanding what it's about, tracking comprehension through it, and getting writing on the page as well, even while we're working on underlying reading skills.
Right. So, Claire, I just wanted to interject here before you go on. That's one thing I want everyone to see, is that pencils are always in everyone's hand, or you're seeing some sign that writing has been going on here. Because even though we're talking about these three groups of reading, writing, and spelling, what we know is that they're very interactive processes, and we need to be teaching all these things together. What we don't want is that we have a spelling workbook over here, and over here is the book you're reading, and over here is the writing project. That is not the way we teach. We're working on all three things simultaneously, even though we're showing them to you in parts right now.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so then we move into this writing umbrella, back over into that area. And this idea here, we keep using this word complicated, that reading is complicated, but writing is also complicated. Writing is incredibly complicated. It's kind of the
most complicated.
Yeah, it's the top. It's the peak thing. It's sort of everything that we work on in our literacy skills, in our language system, sort of culminates in writing. That's where it manifests, and is often then the place where we see if there's difficulty that maybe was hiding in other places. It comes out in the writing because it requires so many pieces to come together.
Right. There's a researcher who said writing is the coup de grace of the language system, and I just love that, because it is the most complicated, the most complex, so it needs the most complex answers.
Absolutely. And from that perspective, it's the don't give up, right? If you come across this hurdle, this roadblock, and it can be very discouraging and it can be very disheartening, but to know, right, to be bolstered by the fact that it's okay because it is complicated, and so the solution will be complicated, but that's okay too. Right. So how do you work on these writing difficulties? So when it comes to this disliking, avoiding, even sometimes going as far as to hating, right, as aggressive as hating writing, this, one of the big sort of strategies we use is this bits and pieces of writing, working in small, manageable chunks. If a sentence is too much, we're gonna scale back to what is not too much, right? As long as there's still that pencil in the hand idea, right? That we can work on at the word level, we can work on at the phrase level, right? A couple words. If we can do a couple sentences, we're going to try and do a couple sentences, right? To try and build up to more and more as we go, which helps with that low output and exhaustion. These, the bits and pieces also kind of goes with that one as well. But also this is a big place where we talk about using intentional copy work and dictation. And the kind of key word in the middle there is the word intentional. That I think, there's a lot of programs out there that talk about copy work and dictation, and adding this really very focused and connected way of doing copy work, that it isn't on an island. It isn't just something we do over there and we forget about it when we go to do our other stuff, that it's woven into the whole learning system, that it's a part of, when we're practicing individual skills and when we're practicing reading and spelling and all these pieces, that's brought into the realm of copy work as well. And it really builds up those individual skills. And when it comes to that last piece of poor handwriting, there's many different reasons why a child might have poor handwriting. We mentioned dysgraphia as something. There's having a lot of emotion wrapped up around something can lead to that kind of death grip on the pencil. Having low skills, right? Just having not very many skills in an area can lead to now this is that much harder, right? And that much more difficult to form a letter or to keep them anchored on the line or whatever it might be. So it really comes down to narrowing into what is causing it and being able to tackle those specific obstacles, right? To notice them, right? Label them, identify them, and then start tackling them.
Right. And, as Sam was saying, people just didn't really know a lot about dysgraphia before. And I will tell you, this is an area of fairly new research. And we are keeping up with it, and we are using strategies with our students, and that is what we show you in our handwriting class. There's definite, when we say you have to tackle these specific obstacles, we are identifying what they are, and we have strategies for them. And waiting doesn't make things go away. That's one thing we have definitely learned about reading and writing and spelling. Waiting doesn't make things go away. Getting in and figuring out how to get to that next step, that's what makes things go away. And I love the way Claire described that we start at one level and then get to the next one. So what's different is we are working to a level of success. And you might say, well, yeah, I can get my child to write a word. What I can't get is a sentence. I can get the sentence. I can't get the paragraph. I can get the paragraph. I can't get the paper. And so stopping at a level of success is not that's not my definition of success. My definition of working to a level of success is that you're in this really good place that you can feel good about, and I am moving you to the next step. That's what success looks like. So what do you do now? So we have, one thing is we have a writing and editing class, and we actually talk about these different levels, and we talk specifically about why we need to be doing intentional copy work and dictation and how we need to be weaving that in, but also why we need to be adding some original writing, and also helping you identify that if there are some foundational underlying skill issues, how we can help the student who's dealing with those kinds of issues keep on this writing path. And by the way, these educator training classes, we call them laying a path because exactly of this idea that we were talking about. We call them our laying a path classes because we want kids to not just be where they are, but take that next step and the next one and the next one. And the goal is to get everybody, as Claire said, to be this functional, independent reader and writer. So some of the things we do is we work on different kinds of skills that build into writing. And we're super thrilled about our Grammar Bugs program. This is a way, you can see you have students of all ages here. They are learning a lot about writing. They actually don't just look at a workbook. They don't just write a sentence on paper, but they're actually learning some things about the structural elements of writing, and they are writing them on manipulatives, and they're using these manipulatives in an effective way. And then the other thing is, a great place to start is with our sticky ideas. If you want to understand, when we talk about getting kids to write in bits and pieces, here's a takeaway for you to do tomorrow, even without us. That if you can get them writing in bits and pieces, like we do in our sticky ideas, and then begin to put those pieces together, even in functional ways they can see. So what you see here is how much we rely on these bits and pieces, and we teach kids how much they can put together and how much writing they can accomplish. And then from there, they learn, I can do this. And now I actually could do it in a way that's more traditional, like in a paragraph or a paper.
Right.
So that's what we're all about here.
Yep.
So our next area, as we said, we separated these out for you here, but they're all interrelated, is our spelling solutions, right? So for this, don't despair, we got you, okay? Spelling is an area that is near and dear to my heart because I did not feel that I was a good speller growing up. I have actually improved my spelling skills immensely in these numerous decades of working with kids because you never stop learning. And often I find with those older kids that they will actually kind of come to us because of feeling embarrassed about their spelling, and they will go back and work on reading and writing skills they always needed to work on through spelling. And so what do you do? What do you do about spelling? So first of all, when we have kids who struggle in spelling, we do a combination of phonics work and word study work. So what we know is kids have to be able to really process sounds. They have to make strong automatic sound to letter connections. And then we also know that the English language system is super complicated and is influenced by, spelling is influenced by so many ideas. We have a video in the Connect Expo just about spelling. You should go and watch. And so we do a process we call word study, where we really increase kids' awareness of how words work and how our spelling system works, okay? You may feel like my child writes, but boy, there's just no editing going on. And I don't even know how to get them to edit their own work. And this kind of builds into some of those memory issues that we were talking about. So one of the things we do is we use vowel charts and LA binders to get kids to take more ownership, and we teach them how they use resources to edit. And a great place to start with that is our vowel chart class or our binder class. And another big spelling problem is just poor memory. This is what I felt mine was. I would learn a word, but it was hard for me to hold on to that word. And I might spell it 3 different ways in the same paper, the same word 3 different ways. This poor memory. And one of the things we work on is we use this say it while you write strategy. We know we have to activate the language system. We have to activate the sound system. And we also know that working memory relies a great deal on the language system and on the sound system. We know this about working memory. So we work on those skills with kids in spelling. And we teach you how to work on those skills.
Right.
Better way to say it, right?
That's true. Yes. So with that, kind of where do you go now? What do you do now? Rita had mentioned this word study piece, which it is true. Our big combination when it comes to spelling is that phonics and spelling class, which has spelling in the title. So a pretty good indicator that it is connected. And then this word study piece, which we have the same laying a path style class for. And it's this super deep dive into the structural elements of words, right? How words go together like Legos, right? They break apart and they get rebuilt, and we have word families and we have word histories that go, all the way back thousands of years from other languages and a few years from other languages, right? This whole mixed bag that is English. And word study is the place that often answers these questions of, why is this spelled so weirdly? English is just confusing. I don't get it. right?
Are there any real rules?
Yeah,
Right?
actually any rules? What's all this nonsense, right? That word study can often actually shine frequently very bright light into those questions. And so learning to operate between this sort of phonics and sound-based level and this word study structure-based level, and that it's really the sort of sweet spot between those, bouncing between them, that gives us deep usage of the language when it comes to spelling.
Right, and connects greatly with vocabulary building. So throw out those vocabulary books. What you really want is word study.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at the picture we have of one of my students going through this whole, massive vocabulary piece here, and all these connected words and how they're broken into based on sound and also based on structure and all these words that are now open to him to use and to spell correctly too.
Right. And I have to say that was a student who hated reading, hated writing, right? Hated spelling. I mean, that's just a given. If you hate reading and writing, you probably hate spelling, right? He's really come so far and smiling now. And that's the biggest thing we hear if you join our Rooted community is how many kids are progressing who are now smiling when they do this work, right?
Mm-hmm. And the other picture here is sort of a little bit of a visual toward that LA Binder vowel chart. These are these student-built reference tools that, we as educators build them sort of with the student, right? We're not building them for the student. So that, as Rita said, the student's really building a lot of ownership. They've learned this material. They're putting it in their words. They're putting it in their handwriting. They're building their thing that they can reference. And, you're guiding ownership. You're teaching the ability to look something up, right? To reference back on something you've already done. You're building, all this responsibility while simultaneously building, genuine, useful knowledge about the language system as well. So.
Right. A lot of our educators will say that they're building these reference tools too for themselves because they become so excited and interested in the process that they want their own binders, they want their own vowel charts, right?
That's right.
And so every child's holding a pencil. That we like to say, although there's a lot of markers going on there. Every child has their own reference sources that they build as they learn. It doesn't come to them done. They build it as they learn.
Yes. So we also have a couple things that we just wanted to mention here that really help bring it all together. Some things, because language arts is so complicated and so many parts are moving together, you often do have to teach to individual skill areas to help bring those up, to both strengthen what is strong and to strengthen what is weak, right? We kind of do that all at the same time, and work in individual areas, but we also have to bring all these areas together to end up with, independent reading and writing. And that happens at different stages. It happens at different, ages and levels and everything. But we wanted to just point out a couple of the two kind of big programs that we have and are working on and getting out there and that are currently available. The first of which is our Pinwheels program, which is for the early, just starting to learn to read and write, or the struggling kind of early foundational learner. This is, really starting with learning your letters, learning your sounds, connecting the letter and sound together, starting to work with, you can see the one picture there working with these kind of 3 sound words, right? And building up from there. There's a lot of manipulatives. There's a lot of moving and action and getting, the whole body involved in the learning process. But also there's writing and there's reading and there's spelling work and there's even a little grammar work in there. And
there's sound discrimination work, sound blending work. Some of the kinds of training that kids who do have dyslexia or dysgraphia need to have.
Yes.
So that's built into the program as well.
Yep. Yeah, really, really trying to lay the absolute strongest foundation that you can with that. And then at a little bit of an further along the path kind of level, so we tend to call it kind of this gaining skills level, is a program called the Wand. And this is that little bit more, moving beyond just the single sounds or even 3 and 4 sound words up into 4 sound words, 5 sound words, starting to getting into blends and suffixing, prefixes and suffixes, and working with what's the word I want? Uncontrolled text, so real literature, right? Pulling in some of those not early readers, not at the introductory level, but some of those kind of young readers, I guess is maybe a better word, so that you can start to see the real life application of these things that you're learning, these patterns that you're starting to recognize. And it's still, right, you see lots of Post-its there, still very manipulative, and still full of this kind of reading and writing piece as well.
And just to interject here, many of our followers who are looking to work with kids who are even in this, 8, 9, 10, Wand is still good for age 8, but this 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old level will look at the Wand, and then they may change the reading level that's in the Wand, but they're doing the same kinds of activity because the Wand really helps teach you about intentional copy work and getting some of these foundational skills and how to weave in and out of these other areas of literacy and language arts. And, the one thing I hope you see here is that, wow, this is good stuff for every learner, not just the struggling learner. So often, I always said that my most challenging student always taught me the most. And then whatever I learned from them just applied to everybody, right? And that's what you see here, is this is good for everyone. This is good teaching. This is engaged learning. And engaged learning brings about deep knowledge. And that's what we're really going for here.
Yeah.
So that's who we are. You can, if you put up the other picture too, Claire.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Sorry, I just want you to see the 2 other members of our team. In the back there with me is Tracy Molitors. She's our graphic designer, our artist. She's writing our stories for us in our 2 reading programs that we just showed you. And Maura Kuzanowski is another speech and language therapist, and she is helping all of us write our curriculum, teach our classes. If you've taken any of our classes or you've watched any of our videos so far, you'll see more on those. So if you're wondering, I just want to know a little bit more about the way you guys think. A great place to start is our book, Trees in the Forest. It's a lot about deep, it says, for readers and writers through deep comprehension, but it has activities in there that all use bits and pieces of writing and will teach you a lot about the way to think about what does it mean to have engaged learning? What does it mean to have to achieve this deep understanding with our kids? So that is another great place to start.
Yeah. Absolutely. And to feel free to visit our website, and also our booth at the Homeschool Connect Expo, and to we have some other, we've mentioned we have some other speaker sessions there that kind of cover a wide variety of different specific things within reading and writing, like spelling. We have one on grammar. We have one on kind of handwriting and typing and cursive and those things together, and then also. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say that you said about understanding what is like one disability.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for the explanation of what written language is all about. And I was just sitting there watching that reading, writing, spelling, in the beginning of how it all works together. And that was one thing I didn't fully understand, how much it works together, and some of those things to look out for and see. I was like, yep,
Yeah.
Yep.
I was
Yep.
feeling all those things, right?
And I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I missed it, but we had no clue. I mean, like literally had no clue. That's why I can't thank you enough of what you're doing. Not only to schools and to other, but the homeschool world of helping parents understand their kids. Because all I could keep on thinking about when you're going through, the different bugs, the spelling bugs, the grammar bugs, and all these little things that you do is confidence.
Yeah,
The
right.
confidence that these kids have to be like, oh, I'm not weird, or I'm not anything that their mind and devil's putting in their brains. Yeah, I'm not that. Because I got discouraged, and I know my son got discouraged. But thank you so much. But that one of the questions of if anybody that's like me when you're riding out or putting out there, what to look for, and how and everything. How do they get started? You had mentioned about the book, and I think that would teach a lot of the fundamental basis of what you do. But how do parents get started with rooted language? Is there a test, or is there like something other than the book where you start?
So I think that's an interesting question. And, the one thing is we really value how individual students are. So one of the best things that we recommend to people is they join our Facebook group, Rooted Community, and really pose the question. This is my child. This is where they are at. This is what I'm thinking. I've, looked, and the first thing people will say is, have you looked at some of the stuff? Just so when we refer to things, you know what we're talking about. Definitely watch all the videos. We have even more videos on our website. But when you go into the Rooted Community, you not only can hear from us what we think you need to do, but you also will hear from other parents who are in the same situation and have been using the ideas and how it's working for them. And you'll see other people asking. Sometimes they'll link you to another Facebook post that someone else asked a very similar question, right?
Which can actually be, I will say, can be, sort of simultaneously uplifting and frustrating, because it isn't an easy thing, and everyone is at such a different level, but that there is also often someone else who has been in a similar space or is in a similar space as you right now, right? That it's not it can feel very isolating, I think, and it's you're not by yourself, and your child isn't by themselves either in that.
Right. That's actually, both empowering and as you said, can feel frustrating, because what you really want from us is for us to say, here's this workbook, just do this workbook for a year and everything will be all better. And you know that, Sam, from your experience. It is exactly a very convoluted, complex issue. And that's what makes it wonderful. That's also what makes it interesting and fun. But it's only fun once we're having fun. And we're only really having fun once we're feeling some level of success, right? We have to feel that confidence and success. And as a parent, you feel the same way. So one of the places we tell parents to start is with our phonics and spelling class. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. Remember in the beginning when I said this is probably either due to dyslexia, dysgraphia, even in mild forms, okay? So I don't want everyone to feel too worried about the labels here. But we know dyslexia and dysgraphia is like about 20% of the population. It's really just a different way our brains are wired. It doesn't mean we're disabled, right? It makes reading and writing difficult, but it's just this different way of wiring that we think about 1 out of every 5 kids is experiencing. 15 to 20% are the estimates, okay? No matter which one of those two, you can have a strong reader with handwriting problems. We still start with phonics and spelling. Mm-hmm. One of the things we've learned about spelling is it digs into reading and writing together in a way that is super important. And if your child's doing well, okay in that, you are still, because we take it to a high level. We take it to multisyllable words. You're still going to come to some place in that class where you say, yep, even my 16-year-old needs to be right here. This is what we need to look at, right? So we always suggest that's a good place to start for most people. The third reason, as you remember, is that you could have weaknesses because you have a weak language system, weak expressive skills might make it hard. But the thing we know about a weak language system is the better kids get at reading and writing, that also is the very best avenue to improving their oral and listening skills. So you kind of get led down the same, I know every child's different, but we're still kind of got to get everyone on the path at the same point.
And I like that, because as a parent, and I like that you mentioned, the parents' confidence as well too, because our daughter, my wife taught her phonics, and she just poof, just had it, and that was like no big deal, and she could spell and read and write any word from very young. And the second one had little other difficulties, and then the third one, we just kind of felt like, wow. What are we doing wrong? Well, what's wrong with us? Is this, was everybody right? That we shouldn't homeschool and we shouldn't do this, and we started doubting ourselves, just as much inside there because he just wasn't getting it. And now looking back, I know. On there. So I think you're absolutely right. I love all the videos that you do. There was even one I think Claire did, how to hold your pencil. And you just don't think about that, but like you said, everybody was holding that pencil and that saying a word, writing a word. It's all combined, and you're just trying to get everything to go at the same time.
Yeah. I think you're right about the confidence piece. Someone in the rooted community had just made a comment that I'm going to send my child back to school because, he's fighting me so much. I just don't think I'm the right person here. And I understand what it means to be in a struggle with your child. And that is a really devastating place to be. And it really does whittle it away at you. And it's easy to just think somebody else, maybe I'm just not the best person to do this. And it's interesting. What I would have to tell myself is, no, I know I'm the right person to do this, but I've got to find the right ways. And not that what I'm doing is bad, but it's not effective. It's not getting us where we want to be. And that's really what we want to help people see is if we can change the way, you probably tried the same phonics program with him, right? That's the thing. It's like not just phonics. It's this. That's why we wanted educator training classes. That's why we give you videos, because we want you to have this different way of thinking so that it's not just that I did this lesson. It's that when he hit this wall, I understood how I needed to change it, how much more I needed to do this thing to get me to this thing, right? And I think it's all those little steps in between that just can't be written into any program, right? And we just really need to help the parent learn that and feel confident in it. And some of it is you just have to step in, and we want to help you do that. And people will say, I watched the whole class, and then I went back to the beginning and watched that part again, and we started there. And even though my child maybe went fast through that, I gained confidence in that, they gained confidence in that, and then we went to the next step. And I think that's the way it needs to be.
When I had lost why we started homeschooling in the beginning, I had lost the beauty of every child learns differently. And I think that's what I lost in when we hit the wall. And for the homeschool from the all the newbies, all the people who just started homeschooling because they had to, and now are going to stay home, homeschooling. You are the best person for that child. You just got to have the right tools and know that you're not going to mess up your kid. You are the best person, to teach your kid how he needs to be taught. You just got to have the right tools for them and realize that everybody's different. And that's the beauty of this.
Yeah. Part of our goal is that, it can feel a little overwhelming. I know we have a tendency to overwhelm, just sort of as what we do, but it's part of us. But our goal is that we want people to have the largest toolbox they possibly can, because you're going to encounter the same difficulty. And so you want to try to attack it in different ways. And you're going to encounter difficulties you're not going to foresee, right? That's just part of being a human being. And, and so the more things you have under your belt, the more things you have to draw from, right? The better you're going to be able to kind of improvise almost a little bit to kind of respond, in whatever way works best. Or, and sometimes it's trial and error, and that's okay too. But that's part of that process, and we often say, or we try to say a lot, that because we try to give so much and we try to tell you so many different things, that sometimes the best way to deal with it is to just choose one thing. Right, that I'm going to start with this one strategy or this one idea or this one approach, and I'm going to try it. And then it's either going to work and I'm going to go, cool, that's in my toolbox, and now I'm going to pick the next thing, or it doesn't work and you go, okay, I tried it, now I'm going to pick the next thing, right, and try this other approach.
Now, rooted in language, you have books, you have online classes as well. What other resources do you have that's part of your toolbox?
So we try to have videos and blogs so that we can keep teaching parents. We can keep sharing what's new and what's out there. It's good to follow our Instagram page and our Facebook page. You will see a lot of student work there that can really take you a long way. So you'll see, if you go on the website, that we have these instructional materials. We have the Educator Training classes. We have free downloads, right? And everything is geared toward how you teach and materials that you can use with your kids. We have this entire grammar program that could take you easily through a year or two of grammar, especially if you're weaving it in your teaching. And I think the biggest piece is we also have a community of people who are really interested in this deep learning strategy. I kind of want to go back to something you said about new homeschoolers and feeling like, is this okay? Am I the right person? One thing I think a lot of people have discovered is how many holes were in their children's learning when they brought them home. They suddenly are saying, and we see this a lot, like, I had no idea that my child actually was not an accurate reader, or I did not realize how difficult writing is for them, or how attention plays into this. I had no idea. Well, here's the thing. You could send them back, this idea that, well, they have all these struggles, maybe I just send them back. And then nobody has any idea.
Yeah.
They just move through the system. Yep. It happens every day of the week. It's frustrating. There are a lot of great teachers out there. They want to do better, but it is a system. And it's not geared to your child's individual needs. And if you have a struggling learner, I feel super passionate, you can tell, about this. If you have a struggling learner, they're not going to get individual work.
No.
Elsewhere. It really needs to be where you are. And I think a lot of times we want our kids to feel happy, right? That's how I was so frustrated with my child. One of my kids had ADHD, and she would really push back on me, and to get engaged. And And there were days, like, were there lots of tears? Yes, there are a lot of tears on both sides. Because actually, she grew confident when she grew skills. Avoiding her tears and struggles and my tears and struggles was actually only a road to lower confidence for both of us. But as she gained skills and I was figuring it out, and we were engaged together and she was progressing, that's where the confidence came, right?
Oh yeah, and I've seen a lot of stories. I've seen tons of people who kids were depressed and this and because they're bullied and all this other stuff from whatever reasoning. They've come home and then they blossomed during this time period of COVID. And like what you've said, they didn't realize how bad they were struggling, and they were just kind of going through the system. And really, if you're nice and smile and get along with people, it's easy to kind of breeze through, some of the schooling, and I told this publicly for the first time, I think earlier this week I read my first book when I was a junior in high school, like literally my first book. Because I could kind of smooth my way around, and I could kind of figure things out, and I just kind of did, and I just flew by, and I got A's and B's, and I was fine. Until a teacher finally challenged me, and Of Mice and Men was the first book, and that kind of changed, and that was kind of the whole thought of why I wanted to homeschool is I just started seeing all these little extra things and all these people and the pressures the kids were going through, and like you said, 1 in 5 might have something of a learning disability or a struggling learner, but they're not being taught anywhere, and that's why I love homeschooling. You're not going to mess up your kids. You're going to have probably tears. You're going to have some bad times, but my 3 kids are advancing through life and advancing through their marriage life, and they're all going to homeschool. So all 3 of them, I found spouses that were homeschooled as well, and that's what they want to do. Even though we had tears, even though we had problems, but it gave them, like you said, the confidence. It broke down walls. It gave them, some triumphs to go through. And those are the things that are going to make your children successful. It might not be millionaire successful, but just as a core human being and as a person, and a love of learning, which is a big thing I love about homeschooling, is trying to bring that love of learning to kids.
Right.
So.
And, and when you feel good about your skills, you feel passion. So many of our students, and Claire can attest to this, by the time we work with them, it ends up language arts is their favorite thing. And it was the thing they hated most, right? It was the hardest thing. But it's actually the place where they had the most engaged learning, and they end up feeling like that's actually the place I feel like I have the most understanding of what's going on, and that's what we want. I think something interesting you said about high school, I wanted to tell you that 2 times I get referrals, 2 big times for kids in traditional school. One is right around when they're entering middle school, because parents start going, oh my gosh, clearly nothing's changing, and high school's right around the corner, right? The other time I tend to see more high-level kids, probably, that sneak through, is when they take their first ACT.
Yes.
It's timed, it's fast, you got to read it all yourself. Skimming around, right, isn't going to happen. No extra credit, no nothing, right? And it's down, and that's when kids are actually discovering, hey, I have this mild dyslexia I've been battling all this time, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to show everybody your exhibitor booth here at Homeschool Connect Expo has a ton of information on it, and it links out to your website. But it has more information about what we're talking about, with links out to different and things that you've talked about during this time period, the wand, but the online classes, the resources. And then there's also, some videos But then this is where you can jump right into Rooted in Language, the Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. But once you go over to the website, it's a beautiful website. I love your logo, by the way.
Tracy Molitor's painted that, and it actually kind of our image of the 4 trunks of the language system and the roots of what you need to learn, and the beautiful canopy that results as we get to flourish in that way. So she did a beautiful job with it.
I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. I love it. That's the one thing that always stuck out at me was that logo. But all the information is right on the website, rootedinlanguage.com. You can get all the information, get to the books, the shop. It's really super easy to go through, and the different resources. But definitely check out. They got the speaker page as well with all their speaking sessions on there. But I kind of want to let everybody know, this is how easy it is to start getting involved with Rooted in Language. And like I said, to jump on to your Facebook group page to where, there's a community, which I love. That's awesome. I didn't even know that. There's a community of people going through where you've been, where you're going through. And then you have, everybody that Rooted in Language rooting for you and going in that. See what I did there? But yeah, be able to be there to help guide you through, to build that confidence in your kid, to get them some help when they need to. I mean, that's what we do. And Rooted in Language is there to help. And so I hope anybody watching this live or, here in the future, just jump on there and go out to their website, get involved in their Facebook community group, because they're there to help. You can see the passion.
Yeah.
And, that makes it nice. Cause I mean, you're there, you're there to help, and I love it. And I think, yeah, I think this is going to be something that people are going to realize. I look back and I'm like, maybe my smiling, trying to get through life and everything else is probably, I definitely know, I have speech impediment, and there's probably a lot of language things I just skipped through in life. Because my wife just looks at me sometimes like, where did that come from? I'm like, I don't know. So I'm probably looking back and like, there's probably a lot of holes in my, that's why I did what I did, So
I'm a grandma now, and I just want to tell you that if dyslexia or dysgraphia is in your family, there is a genetic line, and that's one thing we do know, and it can be mild in one and stronger in another, and all of that. So, learn it now, because you're going to have grandkids, right? And get them on the right path. So it's never too late to jump in, right?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time and what you do and how you do it, and for being a part of the Homeschool Connect Expo for so long. We really, really appreciate it. Is there like one other thing that we might not have touched on that you want to hit right before we head out of here?
I think for this space, I mean, we just, that encouraging people, especially, we try to put out a lot of just like free, accessible kinds of things, and to really like take the time and take the effort to go and explore that kind of stuff.
Right. You can learn a lot from us just from the free content, and a lot about working with your kids. And we've had people say, I just started this one thing I read on Instagram and it really worked, so I came to find more, and I mean, I really, really want kids reading and writing to the best of their potential, truly, and whatever we can do toward that, we're very reasonably priced. We work ridiculous hours. I mean, we have volunteers who just believe so much in what we're doing, that are homeschooling their own parents, and they're helping support our Facebook community because they want to jump in and help too. So it's a passionate group, and we all want our kids succeeding, right? We can all agree on that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's been over an hour. I could probably, I mean, I could do this for another hour or two. And that's where you see the passion.
Yeah, it's very typical of us too. Yeah.
Hey, 20 minutes. But
that's awesome. Yeah, an hour and 10 minutes. That's incredible. But yeah, I didn't feel that long at all. But Claire and Rita, I appreciate it so much. Thank you for being a part of this and the Curriculum Fair. Everybody go out, check out their booth, check out their website, get involved. But everybody else, we'll see you later on tomorrow. But thanks, love it. Rooted in Language.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, appreciate it.